have with me live Jin Yu, aka Wolf and Lion
Hello.
he's also known as that on Clubhouse. So welcome, Jin. I'm so glad to have you on here.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Of course. So maybe to start, what I would love to do is maybe you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about you, and you're definitely a branding expert. So I'm so excited to have you on today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm a three-time technology co-founder. I specialize in startups. I invest a little bit as an angel, and then I advise several companies. I have a huge passion for community building. This is why I'm on Clubhouse all the time. It's like the most revolutionary community building, ecosystem building thing I've ever seen in my adult life. The amount of connections that you're being able to build, just like with pop-up events, it's absolutely extraordinary. We haven't seen anything like it. I have a passion for that because I was in the world of experiential marketing, throwing events and parties for over a decade in Los Angeles. And I worked with a lot of high growth tech companies, luxury brands, consumer, direct to consumer, just all sorts of fashion, beverage, you name it. So I was in the live event sector, and then I segued into technology in 2013. And I guess I'm now here.
And tell us about that technology. So you have developed an app called Vezt, and it's the first mobile app where fans can share rights for. Maybe you can, I guess, tell us a little bit about that app instead of me getting it wrong.
So Vezt is the world's first blockchain music royalty marketplace app. That's a mouthful. And what that means is fans can download this app and then they can invest in any song from any artist. And whatever amount that they invest proportionally, they'll get a fractional royalty rate along with that artist or the label. So it's kind of like Robinhood app of music rights. So, as an artist or a label or publisher, you're allowing the fans to invest in the music. And if you've got, let's say, millions of people who buy $5 worth of song rights, you've got potentially millions of people who will now promote your album as well. So maybe 1 million streams can turn into 20 or 30 after they're all done and said talking about it.
So you're really using not just you're also using your audience as social proof. That's amazing.
You're crowdsourcing your own record label basically through your audience and your fandom.
Very, very cool. So tell me, how did you get started with your business?
With Vezt?
Yeah.
So I was in experiential marketing from 2006 until about 2013. And 2013, I got recruited by someone who was one of my clients actually. And it was my first tech company. And I did something revolutionary for that company that ultimately made me a co-founder of that company and helped scale it to $250 million valuation. And within 3 years, and at that time, we automated the sales process and the funnel, completely automated it. And I got recruited by the Vezt co-founders and the investors to do for Vezt what I did for that company, which is called Circus.
Very cool. Wow, that's huge. So, can you tell me what you're working on right now? So I've seen you, well, I not seen you, but I've heard you lots on Clubhouse all the time. So what are you using Clubhouse for, or what are you working on currently that you're using different opportunities to promote?
I'm not sure why I'm on Clubhouse. I discovered it back in November. And because, I'm basically a remote tech worker, we don't have offices anymore. Everybody works remote. You miss the office banter. I wasn't seeing anyone. I was just extremely lonely. And Clubhouse kind of filled the gap and it created connections. I ultimately ended up making all these friends, and I have more business offers than more deal flow than I've ever had in my whole life. So I don't have a plan for Clubhouse. I don't even promote Vezt on Clubhouse. You've never heard me talk about Vezt because I'm literally just on it just to talk, share, and people find some of my talks inspiring. I give away a lot of advice, sometimes best practices on launching a business or branding. People need a lot of help branding because everyone trying to start a business. But I noticed the majority of people, like 90% of the people on Clubhouse, they don't know how to pitch themselves. They can't pitch their business, and they can't do it succinctly. And the more you ramble on, the more you'll lose your audience. People will tune you out. And in a world where we're saturated with noise, You, your brand, and your business cannot afford to allow one person to tune you out. We have to speak succinctly about who we are, our mission, and our businesses. And that, I guess, that's something that I do pretty well sometimes.
I think you do amazing at doing that. That's actually one of the reasons that I reached out to you initially to comment on how amazing of a moderator you are. You ask the best questions. And also, how do we figure out this? Like, I only have this much time to introduce myself really quickly, because it's not just on Clubhouse that we have that, with more and more live opportunities that we're interacting with people visibly, because the reality is, yes, we are all sitting at home trying to figure out this virtual stuff. What advice, I guess, would you give to anyone trying to figure that out for themselves?
Well, you have to have the basic tenets of a good conversationalist. So if I ask you at a party or on Clubhouse, who are you? What's your story? You should have like a 1 sentence pitch that instantly like hooks people. Write it down, put it on a cue card. And then if somebody says, oh, cool, what's your story? Don't go on for 30 minutes. People are going to fall asleep. Tell me, like, within 3 or 4 paragraphs, what is your life story? Write that down on a cue card. And then if they say, okay, well, what is the one thing that you're most proud of? Write that down on a cue card. Write down your little anecdotes and stories, and have like 10 amazing stories that you wrote down in cue cards. Memorize them. So when you go to a party or you're on Clubhouse, you can just quickly give people anecdotes. It should be 3 to 4 sentences at a time. And just every single time it should be quotable and like notable, like make people want to take notes about you, but say it succinctly and really short, get to the point, write it down, write them down on note cards.
Yeah. Is there anything that you could suggest for the components of what that might include? Like, if I was going to create, a quick little, those 3 to 4 sentences, what would be some of the components that I might include with that?
Who are you? What's your story? What are you most proud of? What was your biggest failure? How did you overcome it? What's your dream? What's your legacy? What do you want to accomplish this year, 3 years, 5 years from now? What do you look for in a leader? What is it like working with you? What is it like fighting with you? Like, critical life question.
Yeah.
People can Google this. What are the most critical life questions there are? We write down the answers to all of that on cue cards. Have them ready to go. Anytime you're on TV, let's say you're on Clubhouse, or you're just at a networking party, we should all have this stuff like instantly ready to go. We should never ramble. Memorize it like a script. If you're not an actor, be an actor and just memorize your lines.
I was actually listening to a podcast. It was Kelly Roach. I don't know if you know who Kelly Roach is, but I was listening to one of her podcasts, and she was interviewing someone who was saying, like, this is broadcast. We're on TV. Every time that we go live, every time that we're, interacting in a way that other people can see, we're on TV. We need to prepare. So the cue cards, it's just the same as if we were, live in front of a camera. We're live in front of a camera, or live in front of a mobile app or a listening audience. So we definitely need to make sure that we have that stuff memorized. And I think the really cool idea of having it on cue cards is, if you think about cue cards, like, I remember spelling, even with my daughter, I have spelling cards, so that we could have the answers and memorize them quickly. So
yeah, you should do this with their kids. Kids are terrible communicators these days because they're on social media. They don't know how to communicate. In a world of AI, automation, robotics, nanotechnology, big data, and blockchain, and anything that you want to create is going to be done through your ideas, communication, being able to sell the story. You don't need hard skills anymore. In fact, you don't even need any skills in the job place of the future. Everything in the future is going to be based on imagination, storytelling, and creativity, but none of that is possible if you cannot communicate your ideas and speak succinctly, inspire and educate others, and galvanize a team through communication.
So true. So true. And I think the fact that you mentioned storytelling. So I heard something one time that said, and I don't remember the specific numbers, about if you give information while you're telling a story, that people are actually more likely to remember it. So even the questions that you listed off, the critical life questions, if you're able to incorporate your own personal story into that really quickly, then I suppose people will be definitely more likely to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can give people context and you actually have like empirical, data driven evidence based on your own life experience, and you can do it in a short, succinct manner while tying it into the story or the lesson, yes, it makes it very much more impactful. I wouldn't know from like the scientific aspect, but for me personally, it would definitely reach my heart and make me remember it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, I can remember things better when there's a story attached, for sure. So why do you think, when it comes to, I guess, personal branding, obviously this is related to our personal branding, why is branding so important for our audience?
You know, even little kids, if they're like new at a new school and they're like in fourth grade, kids will assess you within seconds or
Mhm.
minutes. And
Yeah.
kids will say something like, "You're random. I don't like you." You've probably heard that term before, right?
The kids will say it's uncomfortable sometimes.
Correct. But the word that all kids use, millennials, Gen Z, everybody says you're random. That's a thing. But you can't
Yeah.
really quantify that other than the fact that what does randomness mean? It means that they can't define you. You're all over the place. And when even little kids can't connect with you because you're random, whether you're a person, a brand, a business, or a message, no one can connect with you because you seem to be all over. If you're structured, if it seems organized and you're consistent, you're less random. And if you're less random, kids can connect with you. And I have an inkling, that feeling that if kids can connect with you, then adults can connect with you. So branding is all about understanding who you are, what is your story, and then all of your messaging, your behavior, your outward facing actions, everything is consistent and everything is within equilibrium with your message. Like that is very Rebecca. Oh, that is something Rebecca would say. Oh my God, that style is very Rebecca.
Yeah.
Everything is all based on, what is the word I'm looking for? Consistency and congruency.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. The thing is, when it comes to branding, especially, I mean, yes, with kids, especially with kids, but if I can understand you, and you are consistent, then I'm more likely to be able to make a decision, like that I want to engage with anything that you have to say. Because just like you said, if I have no idea, if you're random, I can't pinpoint anything that I'm interested in, and likely won't pay attention, right?
Or I might not be able to trust you if you're random. You
Yeah.
know, if you shake my hand and then you like look away while you're shaking my hand, like, that's not like a very good trust, establishment moment. So we want to be consistent
Yeah.
and we do the things that we do what we say. You want to be somebody who backs up your words with action.
Absolutely. And I think one of the hard things right now for, I mean, anyone that's been, thrown into this digital world of not being able to shake someone's hand, is trying to figure out how to now transition into, when I shake your hand, I look at you in the eye, to, okay, so now it's just digital, and now I have to create this brand that represents the same thing that a handshake would. And so it's challenging to sync that together, and so the great thing is that we're, I guess, we get to keep learning, but the challenging thing is that it's just, we're launched into something that we have no idea how to do, really, right?
Sure.
So so based on that, how do you think someone could be more specific, or define their brand?
So I believe that every person, business, service, message, church, any organization, they all need something called a brand Bible. And whether you're Nike, Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, they have a brand Bible that's thousands of pages thick. And in the brand Bible, they talk about their ethics, their morals, their values, every aspect about how their fonts, their typography, everything. So all of their messaging is consistent. Whether they're a billboard or social media or a magazine or TV, everything is consistent across all the board, from everyone speaking about it, all the senior management. But humans, regular people, little kids, we can create a brand Bible. And there's only like 10 or 11 core elements to the brand Bible. So, number one is, what is your brand statement? Like, how would you express yourself in one sentence? Who are you? What's your personal brand story? Tell me that in one paragraph. Tell it to me in one sheet. Have it all written out so you don't have to think about it on the fly. Have it written out. What are your brand adjectives? Well, let's think about TikTok or Clubhouse. Clubhouse is very loving. It's inclusive. It is paying it forward. It's empathy driven. It's sharing, decentralizing knowledge, democratizing knowledge. These are great brand adjectives. So now we should have those adjectives that describe Rebecca. Maybe she's intelligent. Maybe she's inclusive. So you want that. You want to have like a tagline. So Nike is just do it. McDonald's is I'm loving it. So a tagline is really helpful because it dumbs down your brand. So when even an intern is doing a post on social media, they don't need to go to Rebecca and say, hey, is this on brand for you? Once they know the tagline, well, does it exude that we're just doing it? Maybe you shouldn't post a picture of pizza and ice cream because we're about doing it. Let's post a picture about throwing away the carbs and go running. That's on brand. So these are just like certain ways to do it. And then there's stuff like I said, the brand statement. There's what is the unique selling proposition? What's your customer profile? When you're speaking, who do you speak to in the audience? Well, I speak to my mom, my sister, my best friend, and a really cool Gen Z. Those are your avatars. Your Forever 21 or Ulta Beauty Supply, you know exactly who you're talking about. So when you're talking, you don't talk like you're talking to somebody who's irrelevant, like a 60-year-old Harley Davidson guy. You're not talking in his language because that's not your core audience.
Right.
So define that core audience and then figure out who are your brand affiliations. So if you want to work with Nike or you want to work with Gatorade, then your look and feel should resonate with that. You shouldn't be random. Maybe I shouldn't post pictures of me, I don't know, getting drunk and in a bar fight every other day. Those brands don't want to work with you because there's no brand affinity. And then ultimately there's like the logo, there's your typography, how do you talk to people? And then finally, like the most important is what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish in a month, a year, 3, 5 years? Write those goals down. And then you should always be working towards those goals. So your brand Bible is in alignment to that. So if Nike is all about 1 million new customer acquisitions, well, how many is that per month, per week, per day? And every day we should be working incrementally towards that within the confines of our brand Bible for consistency.
So you're suggesting that people's goals and targets also be included in their brand Bible? Does that mean that the brand Bible might even adapt or change as the year goes on?
You can adapt and change it every day because all people adapt and change. Businesses change. Tomorrow there could be a pandemic. And now all of a sudden we went from brick and mortar to digital. So now our whole brand Bible changes. What's our digital presence? If we spent $1 billion on live events, now it's going to be online. How are we going to pivot? What does that look like? What platforms? Who are we going to work with in the digital world? Because those people might be different than our physical world friends.
I know that absolutely makes sense. So we have a question here. How do you make time to build your own brand Bible? And who within your organization should be doing it? Speaking, I suppose, I imagine from a business owner who maybe has a team. Can you touch on that if you have any ideas or suggestions?
So the first question is, how do you make time to build your own brand Bible? It's a 1-page document. There's only 10 or 11 primary questions, the ones that I just listed off. Everybody should do that, like right now. How can you afford not to make your brand Bible? Because that is literally a career suicide. It's the worst thing ever to not have a brand Bible. If you're going for a job interview, you better know your brand Bible inside and out. Who am I? What do I represent? How do I describe myself? What am I passionate about? What are my goals? How do I align with your vision, your company? Aren't these all the things that happen in a job interview? What about if I'm raising $100,000, $10,000, $1 million to build my own business? Do I not need to communicate who I am, the brand Bible of me and my business. Like, these are the core tenets of life. You can't get anything done without a brand Bible, because without a brand Bible, you risk being random, where people dismiss you, or people will zone you out because you're not able to effectively communicate your brand Bible. Once you do that, you're random. Even little kids will cancel and delete you because you're too random.
And I think from that perspective, whether you own a business, whether you're it doesn't actually matter if you own a business or not, because having your own brand Bible is important as an individual when you're going to a job interview, or meeting someone at a party, or hopping on social media and meeting someone that way. But also, it's important for a business owner, because there's no option. You need to have a brand Bible, and you need to understand your brand and be able to create it, and not just create it, but actually have it memorized, so that it can sound like the perfect pitch every single time. Because the more you memorize something, the more likely it is to become like that. You can help it flow, I guess.
I mean, you see that all the time on Clubhouse. People come up on the stage and someone will say, "Hey, give us a short intro." And then they'll end up talking for like 5 minutes. And then 30 or 40 people will leave the room. And
Yeah.
that room goes from 150 to like 120. And then that moderator will be like, "Oh my God." And then, they'll immediately have to cut them off or send them back to the audience, or worse, interrupt them and say, "Oh my God, we just wanted a question or a short intro, and you're going on for like 7 minutes here, and you're really not killing me, but you're killing the audience." Only has attention span of like 10 seconds per person. So make it super compelling and write it down in a cue card. All of your core questions that people could ever ask you. Just write it down, memorize your line, memorize your script.
I've been in those rooms where someone comes on stage, and it's like you start to just tune someone out as soon as they go a little bit longer, or they drag on. What would you say if you're in that position, and you've done your homework, you have your brand all figured out, and you go on to, whether it's Clubhouse or live video or whatever the case might be, and you start running, like falling down that rabbit hole of, "Oh my gosh, I did not even pay attention to what I was supposed to be saying, and now I'm too far in, I don't know what to do." What advice can you give for that sort of situation?
I would call myself out. I'd be like, "Oh my God, Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I'm a little nervous. I'm rambling right now. I'm so sorry." I would just call myself out, and people will instantly, like, they'll tune back in. They're like, "Oh my God, thanks for the vulnerability and the authenticity. I do that as well." So just immediately, like, make your point and shut the hell up. That's what I tell myself every day. Make your point and shut the F up.
Yeah. No, I tell myself the same thing. Like, just say your spiel, do it fast, make sure that you say all the right words, and then
And it
move
doesn't
on.
have to be necessarily fast. So I may have miscommunicated. We want to speak succinctly. So now what we're seeing on Clubhouse is, because people know there's like a attention span limit, they're talking faster. They're
Yeah.
saying just as many words, but now they're talking faster, which is easier to zone out. So my whole thing is, use less words. Every email, try to remove 2 or 3 words from every email. Every time you talk, say it with the least amount of words possible, and you'll have maximum impact.
It's true. I add too many words a lot of the time.
We all over communicate on emails, on texts, on phone calls, on interviews. We totally over communicate. Cut that stuff down by half, and you'll get invited back.
Agreed. So we have another question. Erica is asking, is there any way to get a list of the questions to answer to create the brand Bible? And is this equivalent to an elevator pitch? So the
elevator pitch is one of the things that you should answer on the brand Bible. So the elevator pitch is basically your brand statement. Who are you? What is your business? Be able to pitch it in one sentence. That is called the elevator pitch, because you have 11 seconds before the next floor. So if there's Brad Pitt in there and you want to shoot your shot, you better be able to do it in 11 seconds, because he's getting off the floor, right? So everything that we talk about should be like narrowed down to an elevator pitch if possible. And can you get the list of the questions? Absolutely. You can email Rebecca or even myself. I'm Jin at Vezt.co. That's JIN as in Nancy at VEZT.co. You could email me and I'm happy to send that to anybody. It's a Word document with 11 core questions that we should all list and write it down on cue cards and memorize it.
Yeah. And I think the cue cards thing is actually a great suggestion, because I think a lot of us we're practicing we have so many of these scripts, we're practicing a cold call script, we're practicing a script for when we get an inbound message, we're practicing so many different scripts that sometimes it could be, where am I or what, but having it on an actual cue card gives you the availability or the ability to just have that information quickly and hopefully eventually memorize it. And Clubhouse is definitely a great place to practice, a great place.
I had no idea how many people suffered through it. And, when I got on Clubhouse, there were 70,000 people back in November. Now there's millions of people. And I've been in 12-hour rooms where these are like pitch rooms with, Damon John and Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, the founder of Twitch, the founder of Netflix. And people will come up, and this is an opportunity for a lifetime. And people will just ask them, what's your product? What's your service? What's your business? And holy crap, it'll turn into a 20-minute diatribe. And people, they just immediately just get dismissed. And you can't afford this. This is like a chance of a lifetime. So tell me what the pitch is in one sentence, and immediately hook me. And then make Damon John or whoever these celebrities or rich people are, make them go into a Q&A. Like, that's amazing. Like, you are so motivational. Like, you're so inspiring. Make me do a Q&A. Don't talk for 30 minutes because they've already zoned you out during that time.
Yeah, agreed. So question for you, what was the most challenging thing about creating, or what was the most challenging about creating not only your own personal brand, but the brand for your business as well?
What was the biggest challenge?
Yeah.
I guess, you want to be congruent and you want to be like in sync with your other co-founders. If one guy only talks about it from the technology standpoint, another one talks about it from cultural, another one talks about it from marketing, that could work. But when you have like talking to employees, investors, or stakeholders, you want to be synchronized. Mom and dad should be like, they should resonate with everything. Like they always say, don't ever fight in front of your kids. Like there's almost no benefit to that. Unless if you're teaching them how to fight and showing how people can make up, like there should be intention behind it. But the brand Bible is so key because too many founders are like spinning in opposite directions. And all of a sudden you're making no traction or movement because y'all are doing opposite things.
Yeah.
So if you have a car, may as well be 4-wheel drive and going in the same direction.
For sure. For sure. And I think, when there are different personalities, it does become a little more challenging. Absolutely. So I guess some other questions that, that I've heard from people that I've communicated with is, how do you, I guess for sure, how do you craft a pitch, which we went over that, but is there a challenge that you have overcome? Because I think a lot of us, we have this block that's okay, so I think I figured out my brand Bible. I think I figured out my elevator pitch. I'm not that confident. And I don't even know if I want to memorize it because maybe it's totally wrong.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a level of imposter syndrome is what you're describing. Would you?
Absolutely.
So yeah, a lot of people suffer from that. And I call that complete BS. Don't even acknowledge that for a second. It doesn't exist. So let's say that you have a passion for art, but you are not an artist. You can't paint, you can't draw, you can't do anything, but you love art. You love talking about art. So what about if you just rented a space, you brought in 6, 7 of your favorite artists, showed them in something called a group show, and then you marketed the artist and the event, and you end up selling out all of the art. Well, guess what? Now you're a curator.
Yeah.
And curators are sometimes more powerful than the creator. So I call this the curator versus creator aspect. Not everybody in life is going to be a creator, and you don't have to be. Maybe you're just the curator. So you can't play basketball like LeBron James? Fine. Why don't you just start an NBA TV channel to show LeBron James games? So be the curator. If the other day on Clubhouse, somebody said, I have a nail salon. It went out of business. This is horrible. I don't know what to do. There's no way for me to make money. I'm like, that's complete BS. What you should do is, why don't you start a book about how to be a nail artist, or an event series on the industry of beauty or nail art. And then let's say you started an event and you made yourself the speaker, make your brand the presenting sponsor, and curate 20 amazing speakers in beauty. You do nails, curate Anne from Glamnetic, who did 50 million in 1 year selling magnetic eyelashes. Bring her, bring everybody that you could find, and bring like a speaker series, and do that every day on Clubhouse. Do it once a week on Zoom or Hop-In or whatever these free channels are. And guess what? She did, I think she called it NailCon. Anyway, she got about 3,000 people. Everybody paid $10 and she made a grip of money. And she's doing this every month now.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. So that's actually a really great idea, to work with someone in a complementary industry, and it could be on Clubhouse, it could actually be on any social media platform, where you can host an event so that that person can speak about whatever is their complementary subject, and you're there for your subject as well, and there winds up being synergy. I've seen that.
There's a person I know here in Hollywood, and he is a nightclub promoter. And a lot of people, thought he was kind of a loser, but he just went to nightclubs all the time. And every time I saw him out, he had A-list celebrities around him. And I said, I don't know you, you don't know me, but how do you do what you do? And he said, you know what? One day I went to a nightclub and I saw Tiesto, the world's biggest DJ. Guy makes like $1 million when he DJs. Yeah. And he said, I always wanted to meet him. And then I looked at the table 3 tables away from him, and there was an artist named Kid Cudi, biggest rapper in the world. So he went up to Tiesto and said, hey, Kid Cudi's here. Would you like to meet him? And Tiesto was like, yeah, of course I would. Then he went up to Kid Cudi and said, Tiesto's here. Would you love to meet him? And Kid Cudi's like, heck yeah. So he introduced them. They ended up partying together. And then Tiesto flew them all to Miami the next day. Then they flew to Europe and partied for a month, all of them. I think they collaborated on a song. And he kept doing this over and over to every party he went to. And before you know it, he is the #1 celebrity publicist in all of Los Angeles. So when you need celebrities on a red carpet, he gets them instantly, because he made himself the epicenter of the connections. You don't have to be the star. You can be the curator of the stars.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. Like, we need to remember that it's not necessarily about the knowledge that you have specifically, is the ability that you have, maybe even to have people connect and interact. And I think that's one of the things that you do a really great job of when you moderate your Clubhouse rooms, like questions. Amazing. You really keep the audience, I think, engaged. And I
try. It's a challenge. It's a struggle bus, but I try to be as cognitive as I can about that.
Yeah, no, I love participating or listening to the rooms that you have. So I guess to kind of summarize, what would you say are the most important things that people might take away from the advice or the suggestions or the structure that you have gone over, or that you use on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's just, everything is about documentation, and just, you got to write out what it is that you want. If you ask somebody, hey, if I gave you $1 million, what would you want to do? Or if you ask somebody, like, what skill do you want to acquire this year? What do you want to be better at? What do you want to master? A lot of people might struggle to answer that. Like, write things down. Amazon has something called The Secret of Working Backwards. Have you heard of it?
I have not, but I might be able to figure out what it's about, but please tell.
So at Amazon, this has been going on for a decade plus. If you're a senior executive and you're asking Jeff Bezos, well, he actually stepped away, but if you want like millions of dollars for a new project, they'll always say, yes, go for it. But first, you have to write out what it is your vision is. Like, it's a press release dated someday in the future, on the day that you are going to measure yourself. So how long is this going to, let's say, okay, we're Amazon, we sell books and toys. And now all of a sudden you want to be in the business of cloud computing. Well, what the heck does cloud computing have to do with books? So you're going to write that. You're going to say, okay, in 18 months, Amazon is going to create AWS cloud computing. We're going to be $1 trillion company through cloud computing because this is the pathway in the future. And now we've got these X amount of clients. We've made this amount of revenue. We now have 10,000 employees in all these cities. Write it out like it already happened. Put down fake quotes, fake metrics, everything that you can imagine. Write it like it already happened. And then you have to reverse engineer every step along the way from that point in the future. Once that press release is compelling enough, that's when it gets greenlit. You get all the money you want and all the staff you want. And the next demand is to go dream and make it happen. Because here's the resources. You just wrote your press release. So everyone should write press releases for themselves. What do you want to accomplish in a month? What do you want to accomplish in 6 months? A year? Write it out and then reverse engineer it.
Oh, so much valuable information today. Like the press release thing, I think I've never actually thought about it that way, but it absolutely makes sense. Like I do write my goals out every day. I try to write them twice a day, but I haven't ever thought of it from the press release perspective and being able to reverse it and actually create the tasks. Yes, I have tasks created to help me get to the goal, but I love the idea of actually writing out a press release and then what was that book called again? Sorry.
Which book?
The Amazon reverse whatever.
Oh, it's not a book. It's an actual mandate inside,
Okay.
and it's called Amazon's Secret of Working Backwards. It's just a rule. Everybody has to work backwards.
I love that. I love that.
They're $1 trillion company, and now 75% of all the revenue comes from AWS cloud computing. You know, online sales is a loss leader for Amazon. They could care less about it. They own it. They have all the data, but they're big. The only reason they exist is cloud computing and empowering the internet.
And obviously they have this great rule about working backwards, and it's working.
Correct. Google, Apple, IBM, Microsoft, they leapfrogged everybody. You know, Microsoft is years behind Amazon in terms of cloud computing.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple questions before we wrap up. Jin, tell me what you are the most excited about right now.
I'm most excited about Clubhouse because I see a lot of division and a lot of social issues with the world, not to mention climate change and a lot of other things that we're facing. We need to have serious, hard communication. We need to come together through discussion, debate, friendly discourse. We need to educate, enlighten, and inspire people to have communication. And people always say, well, you know, if you keep talking without action, nothing will happen. Well, guess what? No action happens without talking. Talking is what inspires the action. So I believe like we literally have 10 to 15 years left until we could have like a cataclysm in our world. And we need to use all this technology that we have. We have AI, robotics, nanotechnology, blockchain, big data, machine learning at our fingertips. All of that could create a utopia, but it could also destroy our world. So we need to have conversations right now today with people and say, how are we going to use this godlike biblical power? Are we gonna be able to just create a utopia and throw it away? So that's what I'm passionate about: educating and communicating.
And Clubhouse is truly an amazing platform for being able to do that. So last question for you today: what are you the most grateful for in your life right now?
You know, it's so basic, but I'm so grateful for my family, that they have incredible health. I mean, without love, like we have nothing, right? So nothing is better than love and family.
Love that. So Jin, thanks so much for joining me today. So for the audience, maybe you can, I don't know if there's, your Clubhouse handle. Your Clubhouse
is at WolfXLion. So if you ever want to find me on Clubhouse, just go to WolfXLion. I have like the big pink color behind my head, and I kind of did that so it would help remember.
Yeah, and it definitely stands out. So thanks so much for joining me today, Jin. And again, I'm Rebecca Cramer here. I would love for my audience, if there's anyone who hasn't already joined my Facebook group, Social Selling Growth Masters. And I do this every week. I come on live to hopefully provide value. And I'm so glad that I was able to have you today, Jin, AKA Wolf and Lion on Clubhouse. And
Yeah.
I look forward to joining your rooms. Maybe even, do you have anything going on like that's scheduled that I could?
At 2 o'clock today, I'm doing a brief so everyone's talking about Robinhood and the GameStop debacle. There's a congressional hearing going on right now, and it is like one of the most corrupt things we've seen in terms of the hedge funds and market manipulation and all of this stuff that Robinhood may or may not be complicit about. So we're doing a Q&A with a leading law firm who is leading one of the massive class action lawsuits against them at 2 o'clock, and we're going to just unpack this whole thing with him.
Perfect. So that's 2 o'clock Pacific time, which is what that is 5 o'clock Eastern. Wonderful. So Clubhouse at 5 o'clock Eastern. Wolf and Lion will have an amazing room to share, I'm sure. And thanks so much for joining me, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks. Pleasure and an honor to be on your video, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thanks so much.